Coming up on this edition of Open Source.
Most people don't think about their water unless it becomes a problem, like in Flint. And then when it becomes a problem, it becomes your number one priority. Once we make people aware of the fact that they can know what's in their water, then they're very interested and want to know what's in their water. What we believe is that making this data available, accessible, and transparent gives it power.
That's all next on Open Source. Chris Jones is a self-described tech geek, and he's made an impact in an amazing variety of sectors: adthech, blockchain, app development, and even water safety. Chris Jones, welcome to Open Source.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So how do you describe yourself? I meet you on the street and I say, hey man, who are you? What do you say?
I'll probably start off with, I'm a dad to 3 crazy kids and a husband. And then on the professional side, I am someone who is constantly trying to seek out and figure out ways to use technology to improve our environment, our existence, help people lead better lives.
And I like that. And I want to start there. Well, I lied. I don't. I want to just jump back a little bit in that. When were you always a techie person as a young kid, or did the light come on at some other point in life for you?
I was not techie as a young kid, which I'm hoping it works out for my kids, because I've been trying anything that I tell them to do, they want to do the opposite. But for me, I was not techie. I was always entrepreneurial. My father was an entrepreneur, and I kind of eyes got open to tech once I was out of business school and just saw where the world was going at that time. And I graduated in marketing from Kellogg, and in some of my early roles, I said, this technology thing is really moving at a speed that I need to get into this to be able to understand it, so that in the future, when I'm either doing my own thing or an executive at a company, I can actually look back and understand what the people who are working for me are actually doing. I came up at a time where, when I went to college, the only way you could get an email was to go to the computer lab, and the email address was about 50 characters long, and 2 professors used it and could send you emails. So it was early days. And of course, 10, 15 years later, technology had taken over, and it was like, okay, I missed out on that when I was in school. So I needed to bone up on it once I got into my career.
No, that's interesting. I just want to touch that point there that, I remember those days. I remember someone, I was working at a television station, and this one guy was really excited about tech and was talking about email, and I was just wanting him to leave me alone. And, it was just something else for me to remember. So now when you look back at that and you look at where we are now, is your mind blown, or are you just knew it was coming to be what it is right now? How do you feel about this transition?
Yeah, great question. Yes, when I look back, I go, oh my gosh, and why didn't I get into this even earlier than I did? But when I kind of step back and look at kind of where we are right now and say, okay, how do we leverage this technology to do things that have a bit more of a purpose than just technology for technology's sake or just technology for entertainment's sake, but actually helps it really improve people's lives?
Wow. So that's interesting, because, and then actually coming out of business school, I mean, they're not teaching that kind of community idealism in most colleges of business. So where did you get that sense of helping the world?
Yeah, I played a bit of soccer after I finished up. I went to Georgetown for undergrad, and I played a bit of soccer. And one of my first early jobs was with a nonprofit currently called America Scores. At the time, it was called DC Scores. And we ran after-school soccer league and creative writing workshops for elementary school kids, urban elementary school kids. And during that time, I got a real appreciation for the need for for organizations like our organization and the impact that it can have on children and communities. And that opened my eyes in a number of ways that I'm still blessed to be able to see now. And that organization went on to become a national organization and works with tens of thousands of kids every day after school. It's had impacts on thousands of kids' lives. And I still look back and I think that's probably the most impactful thing I've done from a career perspective. And it was one of my earliest jobs, and I was, figuring it out, barely knew what I was doing. But that seeing that impact, that's always stuck with me.
Well, those are formative ideas, and that's important. Those are important steps for you because it's really shaped who you are now. So now you're doing, among many other things, you're involved in something related to cryptocurrency, but it's blockchain, and it's very complicated and way beyond my pay grade. So explain to us in a way a kindergarten student could understand. What is blockchain?
Yeah, blockchain, the simplest way of thinking about blockchain is it's a way for us to secure and have confidence in the information and data that we utilize. I used to go around and speak on blockchain quite often and try to explain to folks in a really simple way how to utilize blockchain. I have a number of videos that are probably worth linking to, and in order to really dive into that piece. From my perspective, the best way to think about it is blockchain's transparency, and it enables you to see everything that people are doing, the transactions that they're doing. I have a number of stories, and I'm trying to think of some of the examples that I utilize because I haven't been doing my blockchain stuff for about a year and a half now. But I used to use a number of examples to really dive in and make it really easy for people. I got a number of videos on that, and I'm so focused on the water right now. I haven't even been able to work on the blockchain stuff, even though we're applying it in my current business. It's our phase 2 of our current business. So let me come back and answer that question.
Well, the thing is, help me in this way. Is blockchain and cryptocurrency, are those things that we need to get involved in, or we just need to be aware of?
So two things. So one, blockchain and cryptocurrency are two different things. So cryptocurrency is an application that uses blockchain primarily for the purpose of functioning as money. All right. But there are a number of other applications of blockchain that are not directly related to money. So should we know about cryptocurrency and blockchain? Absolutely. Anything involving money and the exchange of money and digital cash, yes, we should be aware of that. And to give you a simple example on that front, what blockchain enables for cryptocurrency is for me to pay you, you to pay someone, and for you to know that you received the dollar from me, and for the person who you paid the dollar to next to know that you had the dollar to give to them to pay in the first place. Blockchain enables that. So if you think about our digital world, if you send a PDF file to me, and technically you and I both have exact copies of that PDF file. If that were a dollar, technically you and I could both spend it and no one would know the difference, right? But with money, it has to be verified. It has to be passed. And in the digital world, that wasn't an easy thing to do. So blockchain enables me to pay you, for you to know that you received a dollar, for you to know that I had the dollar to give to you, for me to know that I no longer have the dollar, and more importantly, for other people to then know that you have the dollar and I don't have the dollar. So that's what blockchain enables for cryptocurrency. Now, in terms of the underlying technology itself, do we need to know it? It's kind of like, do we need to know HTTPS, which is what secures us as we travel on the internet? No, we don't need to know that, but we need to know how it's used, right? We need to know if we set up our e-commerce store that it has HTTPS enabled so that the transactions done by credit cards are secure when someone buys from my website.
So I guess the better question is, what do we need to know about it then? What should we know about it?
Good question. So you want to know what it enables. So in an example of cryptocurrency enables money. It enables us to exchange digital tokens that can function as money. Beyond that, trust in data it is the first use that I believe will be widespread with blockchain, followed closely by or aligned with using it for digital identity. So enabling people to be able to determine that you are you without needing a third party. Simple example of that is right now, if you go to a bar, you give the bouncer your ID. What's the bouncer need to know? The bouncer needs to know that you're over 21. They don't need to know where you live. They don't need to know your blood type. They don't need to know the color of your eyes. They don't need any of that other information. They just need to know that you're over 21. They don't even need to know how much over 21 that you are. Blockchain will enable you to be able to provide that information, that bouncer to be able to verify that information about you is correct, and to only have that information. This person is over 21.
Now, that's powerful. Is there a point that you see that blockchain could be used in that fashion?
Oh, it can be used in that fashion now. It just doesn't have widespread adoption at this point, and there's still standards that are being developed around how folks will utilize this technology. But yes, it is absolutely designed to enable that, and it will be one of the early use cases so that all of us, I mean, right now, think about it. How do you prove that you're you to someone?
Right.
When you go to a bank, when you go anywhere,
passport,
you actually need
birth certificate, that kind of thing.
You need a third party who says, yeah, that's Tony. And you can trust them because we've given them this document. In the future, you'll be able to prove that you're you without that third party having to be the one that says, yeah, that is Tony.
That's a game changer. Now, of course, you've got your hands everywhere, but you're really involved right now, heavily involved in this water safety testing. Explain what Aqua.
Aquagenuity.
Aquagenuity. Explain what that is and what you're
water
what you're
plus
doing.
ingenuity. So, Aquagenuity was born out of my co-founder, Dahl Avant, who is a true trailblazer. She was working in the water space when Flint happened, and she went up to Flint and was meeting and speaking with people as this disaster was going on, and she kept saying to herself, "How come these people can't find out what's in their water?" It would seem, while many other folks were focused on the politics of it, she kept saying, this seems to me like a data problem. People can't find out what's in their water. So she's a Harvard grad. She went back to Harvard and started researching. What's the information that's out there on water and water quality? And so what Aquagenuity is we look to make drinking water quality data visible, accessible, and understandable for everyday people. So
where's that data come from, Chris?
Great question. So we've developed a Aqua score, which is a simple algorithm. It's an algorithm we use to help score your water based on the contaminants that are found in that water. Initially, the data comes from our public water systems. Our public water systems, there are over 57,000 of them in the country. They are required, depending on the size of the system, required by the EPA to test their water for certain contaminants and to provide a report on that testing to the public. Most people don't know or pay attention to those reports when they come out.
And the reports are complicated too, is that right?
And the reports are complicated. So, if you don't have a science degree, you might not be able to figure out what's going on. So our thing was, well, let's take this information and make it something that people can understand. Let's take this information, let's create a water quality index. We call it the Aqua score, based off of this information. 0 is bad, 100 is good, right? So you can get a score, you can see it and understand what that is. And then we also said, well, let's go a step further and let's correlate the data, the information around the contaminants and tell you what those contaminants are and what health outcomes are associated with those contaminants.
And just for the sake of listeners and people that are listening all around the world can hear this, what kind of things shocking things are we finding in American water systems that listeners may be surprised to hear?
Yeah, so let's start with how our water systems are regulated. So the Clean Drinking Water Act, a lot of people have heard of that, and it's regulated. Those regulations are written by the EPA. Well, we release 1,000 new industrial chemicals on a yearly basis. We haven't regulated a new chemical. The EPA has not regulated a new chemical in over 20 years. So there's all kinds of stuff that's being leached into our water systems right now that we're not even aware of because EPA doesn't regulate it and no one is testing for it. Second thing is PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. This is the movie Dark Waters that Mark Ruffalo was in was about this. PFAS was developed back in the 50s, and currently every single person on the planet has PFAS circulating in their system. It was used to develop everything from your Teflon non-stick cookware to firefighting foam. And if you do a quick Google search on PFAS, PFAS, you'll see that the Pentagon has acknowledged that they've got, I want to say 600, 700, 800 bases around the U.S. have PFAS contamination, where firefighting foam has been used for decades and is often leached into the underground water systems that are supplying the local communities. And obviously these things, they're known as the forever chemical because they don't break down naturally in nature. That's why we all have them in our system, because ever since it's been created, it's all out there. It's all out there in our environment, in our water. So we pick it up and it's never broken down. So those are some of the big ones. You'll also find a lot of pharmaceuticals because we as a nation use a lot of pharmaceuticals, and then we excrete that stuff through our urine, et cetera, and it goes into our water systems, and we don't have testing for and often don't have remediation for those types of hormones and the like. And so there's a lot of stuff that's in our waters that we're not fully aware of. And so one of the things that we're doing, in addition to the publicly available data, is we're building a network of homes around the country located in different public water systems where we can have more regular and more extensive testing of our water so that everyone can know what's in their water.
Now you've got corporate partnerships involved with this. Coca-Cola, correct. I think. So explain why that's the case and what's the value of that.
Yeah, so our goal is to map the drinking water ecosystem. We call it the Water Genome Project. And with the Water Genome Project, we need to get out into our communities and test the water. So one of the ways that we said, let's do this, is to start with what is often the center of our communities, which is our schools. And the EPA recommends that our schools test for lead and copper. And so we said, you know what, let's test for lead and copper in schools. Let's have some of our corporate partners, like Georgia Aquarium is one of our major partners, underwrite some of the cost of this testing. And then we can also use that to test for a range of other potential contaminants that might exist in the water. So we can begin to build this genome of what our drinking water looks like, because a lot of people believe that our drinking water quality doesn't change, but drinking water quality can change as often as the weather. When you have construction, when you have heavy rains, when you have flooding, when you have an accident on the highway that ends up stuff flowing into the sewer system. There are so many things that impact our water. So being able to track and measure that in a real-time basis is going to be crucial for us. Because by 2030, the demand for clean water in the world is going to outstrip the amount of clean water in the world. So we need to have better data and information so that we as individuals, as communities, as municipalities and utilities, and as and corporations can make smarter decisions around water.
Now, I'm just curious, if I go out to Target or Home Depot and buy a water filter or a pitcher that filters water, am I safe?
you are better off. Now, I'm not going to say that all public water systems aren't safe. So, for example, down in Orange County, they invested in a reverse osmosis water treatment system that water there is as clean as you'll get from any bottled water that you buy at the store. Buying a filter will give you some level of comfort for sure, but also being able to manage and ensure that filter is taking out the contaminants that are present in your particular water, as well as you're knowing when you need to change and update those filters. Those are part of the things that we want to educate people on. Functionally, we do two things. We aggregate drinking water quality data, and then we look to make that data available. We can make that data available through data partners. So think you go into a real estate app to purchase or rent a home. You got information on your school system. You got information on the crime in the area. We will provide information on your drinking water quality in the area. You go on a weather site, and they have things like your air quality index as an overlay. So you can see what the air quality is in your area. We would offer a water quality index. People can understand what the water quality is in that area. And then we also enable, at the individual level, consumers can go to our website, aquagenuity.com, and they can literally go in there right now. We have a little more than half the country available, and they can tap in their zip code, and they can see what's in their water at the zip code level. And then they can also purchase test kits from us, where we have what we call a water DNA test kit, which is a bit like a 23andMe for your water. You order the kit, we mail it out to you, you place the water in, mail it back to us. We have it laboratory tested, certified labs. We provide back that data to you in terms of what's in your water and a water score. So we enable people to get personalized water scores based on what's happening in their homes.
So what does that cost, and then what's the turnaround time on that?
Yeah, great question. So the full laboratory testing costs about $129. And we also have test kits, which are a bit like your hot tub or swimming pool test kits that you can subscribe to on a monthly basis and test your water, and that's $14.99 a month. And you can send that information back to us directly through the website and get your personalized water scores that way.
Do you have, beyond consumers, are you really a business-to-business operation? I mean, who's your target market for this?
Yeah, great question. We consider ourselves a B2X operation. By that, but our initial focus is on consumers, because we know that one of our discoveries has been that most people don't think about their water unless it becomes a problem, like in Flint. And then when it becomes a problem, it becomes your number one priority. And so what we've found is that once we make people aware of the fact that they can know what's in their water, then they're very interested and want to know what's in their water. And so for us, a big piece of this is education of consumers, because what we believe is that making this data available, accessible, and transparent gives it power. It's useful to me in my house to know, hey, I've got an issue with my water. It's much more powerful to me, though, to know that my 20 neighbors also have a problem. And so by making this data more readily available and transparent, it enables people to be able to look out for not just their own health and well-being and that of their family. They can also now have the power, information, and data they need so that they can go to the next meeting that their public utility is having and figuring out as they're determining, hey, where are we going to invest in upgrading our infrastructure with our next funding now.
And, that's proof. What you're saying is proof that information is power, because in a situation like Flint, Michigan, where people were told by the government that their water's safe, even by the EPA that the water was safe, if those consumers had been empowered with the data that your company can provide, they would have had a different conversation with the people in charge.
100%. 100%. And so that's exactly what we want to enable, because we believe that transparency is the new currency. There's so much information out there, and in the past we relied on trusted third parties to be the ones to collect all the information, whether it was governments or universities. But now, since all of us have mobile phones with IoT devices growing from your Nests to your Alexas to other in-home IoT devices, we are functionally all sensors. And so being able to collect that data and make it available and transparent gives it significant power. And fundamentally, that's what we do. We start with water quality data, but from our perspective, it doesn't matter what the environmental data is. It's that transparency that gives it power.
So give the website information again, Chris, so people that hear this can know where to go.
Sure. It is Aquagenuity, AquaGenuity.com. That's Aqua plus Ingenuity, water plus Ingenuity, Aquagenuity.com. They can go there and they can enter their zip code and get their water score at their zip code.
Beautiful. Now, before you disappear, I want to ask you, outside of water, what else is exciting you about technology, and what do people need to know that's happening right now that they should be aware of?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, with COVID-19 being so present and relevant, and we believe that it's going to cause a fundamental shift in how we engage and the behaviors that we engage in going forward. And so where we see in technology being valuable in enabling us to make smarter decisions for our own health and well-being. Let me give you an example. Kinsa Health has a smart thermometer. As we got all of our testing problems here in the U.S., their smart thermometer, they decided, hey, let's make this information publicly available that we're seeing in terms of people taking their own temperature and providing that information back to Kinsa Health. They were able to look at the abnormal number of high temperatures in places across the country. And for a time, it was probably the best prognosticator of where this COVID-19 was going next. It was because the power of this information being made transparent. And so we see that continuing to be a theme that we're going to see over the next couple of years, especially as it becomes more important for us as individuals to know, well, when was the last time that this plane was cleaned? When was the last time that this event venue was cleaned? When was the last time that this person did an at-home test to see if they were positive for the virus or not? That information that in the past was either hidden or not available will become really important for us to be able to know and to make available. And I think technology will enable a lot of that.
And I think those are questions that people have not asked in the past that they will want to ask, and they'll want answers to those questions. And I guess the only other thing, it begs the question of privacy and security. So as we go, how do we secure, does people's data, they don't want their data shared like that all the time.
Well, now we're coming full circle. This is about blockchain. It is literally what blockchain enables. It enables people to be able to, one, maintain control over who has access to certain data, who does not have access to that data. This is where we were talking about the digital identity piece earlier on. You can determine who has access to this data. Second, I also believe that younger generations in particular are much more used to and comfortable with a greater degree of transparency than you and I and older generations. And so they're going to be more comfortable letting people know, for example, their status. Hey, have you been tested? Have you not been tested? Than we are. So I think that will evolve over time. But I'm a big believer that blockchain is one of those technologies that will enable greater trust in data and greater ability for people to be able to protect the data that's valuable, that they don't want to be leaked out there.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you enlightening me and the listeners to this program. This is valuable, important information. I appreciate you sharing your time with us.
I really appreciate having the opportunity. And if there's anything that anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Chris at Aquagenuity.com. And Really a pleasure being able to speak to you today.
Thank you so much. This has been Open Source with Tony Motley, and we'll talk to you next time. Open Source is a co-production of Duet Digital Media and McLaughlin Media.